And I really don't have much to say, you know. People that really enjoy talking a lot are better at podcasts. I feel like people drone out when I start talking and start rolling their eyes at me even. And then they start picking on their fingernails or looking away, all these little things. And then eventually I'd get lost and I stop talking. You know those little, what are they called? Things that people do with their hands when they get uncomfortable. Yeah. Some women have issues looking at me in the eye.
What?
Yeah. They look, I get their eye contact and then they just look up. Or, they look up.
Or look away.
No, looked like over my head. And then I have a hard time making eye contact with them again. They'll look down or look away when they talk to me.
What? Yeah.
Some girls.
What type of girl is that?
Probably the shyer ones, the ones that...
The hobbits?
Huh?
Hobbits?
No, shy.
Shire?
Shy. Not a shire. Not like a shire. Dude, I learned a golem, the Jewish golem, is like a clay monster that people put together. That's interesting. It's like a Frankenstein.
It's like a stone golem, stone monster that is summoned. Consciousness is summoned into.
Is this not a artificial intelligence? Is that not what they are predicting?
Yeah, golem is like a artificial AI, yeah. It's like a construct. What's called a construct. It's like an
archetype.
It's like an elemental character.
What do you mean, elemental?
Like, it doesn't have a personality. It just represents a deeper element. Like wood,
right.
Fire, water.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's almost like the construct of artificial intelligence manipulating us to buy things or lead us in a certain direction. Propaganda maybe is a golem.
That reminds me of the New Gods.
What's that?
There are new gods. So the old gods are like Roman, Greek gods, and the new gods are like technologically based, like fame, media, things like that. Sorry, you're gonna have to hold on to that for a second.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, why not? You have to put a name to some entity that's beyond our perception, awareness, understanding.
It's taking over humankind.
Yeah. I wonder if these things have existed always in different representations, like they've just manifested themselves differently and throughout time, but they've always existed. That's why we've had all these religious stories, whatever, metaphors about it, But you would think almost it's necessary to have a large society. Like, how do these things get, just all shape-shifted? Like, how has this shit shape-shifted? Like, that's a weird energy to be an invisible energy that exists throughout mankind, right? That's been eking throughout human history that we've been aware of. Some people, as long as you get educated, then you can see how these things have manifested in the past. And then you see nowadays, it's like, whoa, what the fuck? What it is, though, is are aspects of our personality, our mind. The mind created reality. That's all it is. It's us being able to play with the mind. And this thing, the mind, has its own fucking nature on itself. And those aspects of the mind's nature are the things that we're seeing and represented into new gods, old gods, all those things. Does that make sense?
You got the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we need to put names to symbols, and we need to put symbols to our experience so we understand, like, where they fall into.
I guess would point us to the concept, which is things are bigger than we are. Like if you zoom out to a fractal size, thing, you can see these more larger things play into each other, and we're just in there. But these larger things, right? These giant geometrical patterns outside of our own experience. Those are the things that are shifting. They move slower, but they're way more powerful. They're like we're being caught in a giant wave of these geometrical shape shifting things that we call gods. And those are aspects of the mind. So you can
deep aspects, right? Like super, like you can hardly even put words to them or describe them.
Well, it's interesting because it's a lot of abstraction, right? It's like being able to grab abstraction and create meaning out of all these things. And so I guess the point is that the mind works like a fractal works. Like if we understand the nature of a fractal, we understand the nature of our mind and also physical nature as well, because that's how we interpret physical natures through the mind. So it means like these larger concepts of fractals are also true on our larger reality. And that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, and I think that like larger reality, you can't really put words to it. It's just like it's a amorphous pattern, right?
And that's okay. I mean, we extract meaning, as much through life as we would through a fractal, right? If we look at a Mandelbrot zoom, we can put as much meaning onto that geometrical pattern as we want, but as in life, right? We can say that's beautiful or that looks like a tree, but we're just grabbing something that we want to label and create as a part of reality. We are creating our reality based on choice, what we want to bring into this world through meaning.
Do you change the meaning of a tree when you look at a Mandelbrot set?
I mean,
like if you say this looks like a tree,
mm-hmm.
then you just made this connection, which kind of changes the definition of what a tree is, even though the tree hasn't changed. You just added new information. Like you said, you created new information by saying this is like this.
Uh-huh.
So, and since a Mandelbrot set is like more fundamental, like more in our face as like a fundamental representation of the universe, then that also changes the definition of a tree, which arises everywhere in our nature. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So like you change by making that the connection, you changing the definition.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the definition
okay.
though. Maybe just adding.
It's okay though, because
synonyms. You're adding a synonym.
That's all it is, anyways. Because everything in a Mandelbrot set is going to be different, right? It's an infinitely changing thing, or an infinitely complex thing that is different in all wherever you look at the zoom. It's going to be different than a different area.
But it's all the same, too. It's like repeating.
Not exactly, right? It's a little different. Like each of those tiny little Mandelbrot sets on the outside, they're a little different than the whole thing. So they have tiny different aspects, but they look very similar.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you can kind of create connections, say that looks like that point. And there's so many of them, right? So you can be like, okay, well, that's familiar now because there's so many.
I guess you can look at trillions. You can zoom into a Mandelbrot, and then on the trillionth zoom,
mm-hmm.
you still see what looks like to you as big a Mandelbrot set, even though it's a trillionth different.
Yeah.
A trillionth of us. Yeah, it's like a...
But then if you were an AI... But then if you just wiped away your memory... you
wouldn't know where... Yeah, if you were up or down.
Yeah.
You would just be like in this place.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. Like a Bitcoin or a millionth of a Bitcoin of Satoshi or whatever blockchain, it's all the same, right? We all call it the same thing, but it's actually a different set of numbers that we all agree on, but we all call it the same thing. So I think it's also a matter of like a computer might see the difference
mm-hmm.
in a Mandelbrot set or the difference in a Bitcoin. Even though we don't see the difference, we have to rely on like some higher technical system to differentiate the two. Like digital, the idea of like a digital world that we've created, like is like mind blowing. Like how did we? Like this is a complete accident. This like,
probably a god, right?
Like this neural network that we're building is.
It's a manifestation of the gods that we're talking are larger than what we can understand.
Yeah, like the blockchain is another god. The internet is like a god.
Yeah, well, and it works fractally, right? Because that's a god within a god. That's because that's based within this technological world that we needed before that could exist.
Yeah, the son of the internet is blockchain.
Yeah, well, an aspect of it, because just an aspect of it. I guess, but a son is an aspect. But then what fucked? I guess the market fucked the internet and created the blockchain, right?
The blockchain is
so the internet's just fucking all these things like Genghis Khan, and then there's all these little godchildren that are being stemmed.
NFT grandchild, currency grandchild.
Yep.
Like
yeah.
That's interesting.
It is an interesting way of looking at shit, and
as a god,
as gods, as multiple gods. I can see now how the Greeks did it, right? They saw these different aspects of, society, emotions, how we are, and they just gave it a name because it's a larger thing that's playing with us, like we're puppets.
Like this is the god of the harvest. This is like an aspect of the greater sun, right?
Yeah. See, people fucking they mixed up. It's right there.
I couldn't see it.
It's okay. I know.
I think I have your other one.
Are you serious?
I think I probably you don't have it.
I lost I lost one in
the silver one or the shiny one.
You have another one?
I'm pretty sure I have your silvery one. I saw it.
No. Sarabi gave it back to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She cleaned up.
Yeah.
Cleaned my shit. That's cool.
Yeah, I lost. No, yeah, I left it at my brother. So I lost two of those. I lost that one and I lost another one, and now I took that one from someone I gave it to.
You know what's an interesting phenomena is finding something that was lost.
Yeah.
Like you have a memory of you having something in your possession, even though you aren't holding it. It's like in your realm, right? It's in your possession.
Yeah.
And you only lose it when you go to look for it and you can't find it in your possession. So that's something that's lost, right? It's not accessible to you. Then the idea of finding that thing, like you have to have a memory that it was yours or in your realm to begin with, and that you didn't know where it was, and then you find it. Like things are actually lost all the time, but they just pop up when you need it.
Right.
Or like when you find it, you didn't realize it was lost because you didn't want it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's like a weird phenomena to like find something.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that way about like people. Like, did I find you or did I lose you to begin with? Mm-hmm. Like, or like, how connected are we? Like, one of my best friends in my earlier age, like not early, like 20s, whatever. I went to Bonnaroo Music Festival. I was doing security there. From Austin, we drove to Tennessee. It was a fucking weird drive, dude. We were in a bus. They're like, no one shit on the bus. And then like 8 hours later, I'm like, dude, I got some weird diarrhea.
Yeah, but you can never shit on the bus.
Yeah. And so I got some weird diarrhea. I was like, fuck. And it's like hitting me hard.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, God. And it's a bus full of security people.
Why don't you just say like, hey, I have to poop. Can you pull over?
Yeah. So I did. So I was like, hey, dude, you got to pull over somewhere. This is bad. So in the middle of like nowhere, there was like some gas station with one light.
Oh, thank God.
And like the gas station was like closed even. It was in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And like they just had like this back station that like all the truckers kind of know like, oh, we can stop there.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. And so I was just diarrheaing for like 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Jesus.
And I kept on wiping, it wouldn't stop.
I know. Because
so,
you stimulate the anus when you wipe and then you shit more. Some monkeys do that.
Dude.
You gotta, if like they're constipated, you gotta like rub the butt and then they just are shitting.
Oh,
so that in nature.
Brown talk, dude. Brown talk.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I brought it up. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a fucking, I apologize a lot because it's part of my job. So it's okay.
I'm not actually sorry.
Yeah, I'm not actually. I just like to acknowledge
it's condoling
things like that. Yeah.
So
I'm not in debt to you. That's what I'm saying when I say I'm sorry.
So
Don't get it twisted. So
I'm not in debt to you. We can move on from this because I said I'm sorry. Yeah. So finally, that my supervisor came and knocked on the door, like, "Hey, dude, you're taking too long. We gotta go." I'm like, fuck. And everyone in security is like an asshole, you know? Like they don't give a fuck about your feelings. Or if you're uncomfortable. Yeah. So finally I came back on the bus and everyone gave me a round of applause.
Nice.
I'm like, fuck. And then there was a girl I had a crush on that sat like right behind me.
Yeah.
That I was like talking to the whole way. And so she came back, I looked at her and she was like clapping too. I was like, oh God, this is embarrassing.
Did you continue talking to her?
I ended up banging her later.
Oh, that's good. That means she
like years later though. It was like,
you know, poop brings up disgust, which brings up the conservative thing, which borders, and you want to stay away.
That's me. I don't like brown talk.
Well, obviously not that woman. That woman enjoyed it.
Or yellow talk.
Well, what was the state of the bathroom that you went in?
It was pretty good. It was like a trucker. It was like surprisingly clean. Yeah. It wasn't like a destruction. I think what happens is like on these routes, there's truckers that know where they can stop and that's clean, you know, or that's held up. And like they kind of support the shop that's there. Like the shop owner knows like, oh, if I keep this clean, then people can stop here and they talk to each other and they know where it's at.
One of my brother's best friends used to work as cleaning up. At a convenience store, he'd clean up those He had his trucker bathroom.
That's a hard job.
He said one time, I mean, there was shit, walls, ceiling, fucking just shit everywhere. It's like someone blasted the fucking room with shit. Couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, that's insane. Why are people like that?
Hopefully you have a power washer.
Yeah.
There was a guy out front in front of the hospital where my van was like parked for like 2 weeks. And when I was using your battery to turn on my car, the guy, I was like picking away some shit, and there's a guy like cleaning the little sidewalk,
the tiny kind of Mexican rounder dude. Guy,
yeah, cool. Older dude, and he looked at me, he was like, man, that he must have thought that van is fucking dirty. So when I was getting in my van, he just sprayed the front of my van. Like
that's sweet.
I was like, dude, thanks, man.
That's sweet of him.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, I see him when I'm out there having a cigarette every now and then, you know, walking around.
He's just out there? He's like
he's always spraying down the fucking the berries that fall from those trees outside.
Probably the cleanest sidewalk in town, right?
Yeah, probably the cleanest sidewalk in fucking town, honestly, dude. Yeah. And it's the fucking hospital, but maybe that's why, because, I mean, there's...
want to keep things clean and all that.
I talked to the security guard. I'm like, yeah, we got this hospital I live across. And he's like, oh, there's probably like 50, 60 security guards that work for that place.
At a hospital?
Yeah. And like, he's like, in a big city like that, you probably have a ton. But I'm like, no, I kind of see the same 6 people walking around all the time, you know?
Yeah, on a shift, there might be like 10 or something, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. But we got a cop station, right? I mean, there's cops fucking always around. These
asshole cops in their SUV, instead of going on another street, they turned on this street with their siren all on. I'm like, dude, like the whole way. I'm like, dude, first of all, you're supposed to not drive. If you have an emergency, go around the hospital. Don't go through the hospital. And then second, you're not supposed to like keep your siren on. Like everyone cuts their siren when they get on that block.
Right.
You know? So anyway, these are just some asshole cops. Or they didn't know. Or they're both.
Yeah. Who knows around
You're
here?
Just ignorant.
I feel like the asshole aspect is almost required in LA if you're LAPD. I mean, you got to control people somehow. You got to let people know like you're stupid. And listen, I could fucking kill you, but I can't. So listen, you just back the hell off right now. You know, be an asshole to you.
Every time I see a sheriff now, I'm like, hey, what's up, sheriff? Sheriff's department? Yeah, because I like Villanueva. Like their sheriff. head sheriff or whatever you call him, chief, sheriff, whatever you call him. He's badass, dude. He's a fucking leader.
Okay, good.
He's giving people guns, concealed carry gun permits. He's not giving them guns, but like allowing people to have guns. And all of his sheriff's department, like, guys are fucking, they're down, dude. They're not pussy bitches like the LAPD, you know. And I'm talking like, I felt this way more so after talking to Mike Beltran. You know, Mike Beltran is like super conservative, Mexican, badass UFC referee, like he's a boss, you know, he's a leader. And he came out as being a part of the sheriff's department, like I think a couple of years ago. And he was just saying like how badass the sheriff is. And I'm like, man, like he convinced me. I'm like, dude, fuck yeah. So anyway, every time I see the sheriff, I'm like, yeah. Anytime I see LAPD, I'm like, man, they probably be some crooked ass cops. Yeah. Like, that's just how I feel. But it makes sense because the sheriff is voted. You have to like, that's a local government that you vote. That can like directly affect your life if you vote for the sheriff.
It's weird that all these people live outside of the place they're policing. Why don't we get the police back into the neighborhood? That's what I like.
Like, actually, yeah, community policing.
It's just
community I think there should be, like, if you look at the spread of humans, like the different strata, like the different personalities that pop up, there's always like in any community it's all pretty balanced. Like there's going to be your artist types, your technical types, your hard workers, your agreeable people, you know, like narcissists.
Maybe at different levels, but yeah, you'll have those.
But I mean, just like roll the dice, and that's what happens in society. Is like there are these different types of people. And, you know, like, for instance, like super genius, they might pop up every once in a while. They're not going to be in every community. But, you know, my point is, if you just could identify in, like, say, your apartment building, who are the people who are most likely to be a police type, then start training them and make it so that they have a job within their immediate community to be that role. Like, hey, I've been certified as a community safety member, you know, so like all of a sudden, you know, you can go to them or they can come to you for because you're certifying your own shit.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, I believe in like just keeping it. Everyone should know what each other's skill sets are and what you're trained in, and everyone should be trained in something. Even like a homeless person, like that doesn't want to work, like we need to find a way to train them in something.
Well, it's a mutual thing. It's a back and forth, because if you don't want to be helped, we can't help you. The idea behind capitalism is, what do you want to do? You got to figure out what you want to do, and then you should shoot for it.
I feel like that's like the free market and stuff. I feel like there needs to be a certain part of the community, like, okay, the people who are disabled or don't want, like, that can't work, they still need to be skilled in something. Like, I don't feel like you should do nothing with your life.
People that aren't skilled, the bums exist.
Yeah,
that will never go, but there will always be homeless people. Some aspect.
Yeah,
of
so
them.
there's a difference between what I'm saying is like disabled or can partially work or whatever versus the people that can work and just don't. I think the people who can work and just don't, they need to be skilled in something and participate in society. I'm a little bit of utilitarian in that I don't think people should be unproductive. I think everyone should have something to do, even if they're doing it slowly or badly.
Yeah. I agree with you that you should. I totally agree. But here's the thing: when you start casting judgments like that, like, what do you think should happen if,
for the greater of the land?
I mean, should someone that is able-bodied and doesn't work and just chooses not to, what should happen to that person then in your world?
Philosophy, history, something intellectual. If they're stupid and don't want to work, then you go to him and you say, hey, here's all these opportunities. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to live on the street. So what's happen? What's the punishment?
You tell me. Is there a punishment?
What's the result?
What do you do to those people then?
It's hard because like my brain goes to a few different things immediately. It's like, okay, you can force them to go somewhere, put them in an environment that requires them to react to the environment, like a game. Like you force them into a game to teach them shit. But I don't really want to force people to do anything. So instead of like saying like sit here and read this, like I would just say I would probably motivate them by, man, it's hard. I don't know. Can't drug them up. You can really only put someone in an environment where they naturally want to learn, like naturally want to do something and they need to learn something to do it. Like maybe taking all the homeless people and having like these different farms all around the United States where like you're here and now if you want to eat and sleep and survive, then you're going to work on this land. But it's like in my head, it's like a utopian, like caring society. So I don't know if that's even possible. But like, yeah, you'd have to put them in an environment that like is not like, I don't think people should necessarily be given free shit. Because in nature, you don't get free shit. You have to work for it or you die.
Typically. I mean, that's why people are so worried about getting expelled from the group, because in the hunting gathering, if you didn't pull your weight, you'd be left alone and you would die.
Yeah, or you'd be a badass Rambo type.
That's what, well,
but for a few years and then get hurt and die.
You need people to survive, and that's why shame arose as well. Shame is a mechanism to get you under control in the group so that you don't get left away. But the shame is the thing that happens once you get left behind.
That's oppression, right? Shame. Shame.
No, shame is looking at a bad aspect of yourself and not accepting it, and wishing that wasn't there, not accepting the thing, that the bad things.
I just want to take a person who's not motivated to work and then get them to, I don't care if they even produce. I just want them to consume a skill, like consume knowledge and be in an environment where you have to develop a skill. Like if you said, okay, you're going to have to fight these people every night, then you're going to get good at fighting because you have to, or you get beat up. So like, and you're capable of fighting, we aren't throwing someone in a wheelchair into like a MMA gym unless they want to. Some sick fuck.
I don't know. I don't
wants to get beat up by some MMA fighters.
I think that you're always going to find somebody who's not going to want to do what you want them to do.
So say it's a troll who doesn't want to work, and like but the thing is, like, even if they're like highly learned in like philosophy only, I think that person still has a place in society. Philosophers matter in society, even if you're a bad philosopher. Like you could be a bum and only be a philosopher. I'm fine with that. That's like the minimum,
What do you do with people that are not functional?
Yeah. So how do you make dysfunctional work within society?
I mean, do you have to?
Well, dysfunction. This is what my psychologist, his name's Peyton Wimmer. Have you ever heard anything that he said? Have you ever seen a video on him? Right? I have a bunch on him. I just haven't released anything really. I feel kind of bad about it. But
what does he say about dysfunction?
His whole thing is reforming dysfunction. So identifying dysfunction as something that makes tomorrow like yesterday. Like whatever you're doing now that's making tomorrow like yesterday is and it's not helping you. It's actually working against you. That's dysfunction.
I think competently sane people can understand that concept, but when you have someone who is insane, who cannot function by themselves, wipe their ass by themselves.
Okay. But that's someone with a disability.
Sure. Mental disability, mental dysfunction, physical disability, anything. Because a lot of reasons
even those people can still learn a lot of things, but just not complex things or things that are out of their purview.
Yeah, but
I guess they'll learn.
My point though is like you wouldn't grab that person from the street and tell them to like.
Okay,
fucking do
assuming
something.
that person is able, just not willing.
Got you. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like, but that is dysfunction. I think that is dysfunction within society. Someone who is able and not willing. So how
What
do you?
about monks though? Why would those be the?
They're functional.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything. They're essentially.
They are doing something.
I
It's
guess
just
they
super
work.
selfish.
They work for their shrine or whatever. They sweep up and stuff.
They'll clean up their rooms. They'll clean their rooms. They'll do all the things that
Ashram.
they'll do everything that person should do on a daily basis. You know,
Sure.
like to maintain society balance, but they're super selfish in that.
Should we just kill some of these people?
Who?
Like the sloths, the people that don't,
Sloths.
I mean, an able-bodied person who's shitting their pants, who doesn't want to like get up, they live in a tent. Should we just kill that person?
I would never condone violence upon a human, but in this thought experiment that we're doing,
I'm not saying we should go out and
No, you're
kill
asking a
people.
question.
We should not do that. But
you're just asking.
logically,
Yeah. So what the problem though is like,
should we go out and
like we should should we cleanse? Like we can just start on this block, dude. Like we could probably get away with it for like a couple days.
But
week,
here's
maybe.
the reality of it is, what's the percentage of people that are able-bodied on the street? Probably less than a percentage. More than likely,
you'd have to go
problems.
to Skid Row and be like, okay, one by one, like you have like a bat with spikes on it, and you're just kind of looking at people, and then if it's a question, if they're obviously
if they answer sanely, you just bash them over the head.
oh, you give them a choice. You have to give them a choice. Like, hey,
You have the question that
are you gonna
figures
work?
out if they're sane or not.
Promise me work. Promise me that you're going to do something. And if you don't, I'm going to kill you. That's a Fight Club. He's like, if you're not on your way to pursuing your dreams in a month or in a week or whatever, then I'm going to come back and murder you. That's I think a very motivating thing to do. But the thing is,
Who are you to tell somebody that?
yeah, well, I'm a person with a mission, obviously. If I want people to be motivated in that way, I want to change the world. I'm going to convince you to do things with the threat of violence. But
No.
I don't
See, that's the thing is you can't see where I'm coming from. Why I'm asking this is because I think we just disagree at some level where I'm like, you can't change these people. You can't make them do anything. It's either you take the action and kill them because they're not worth being here in this world, or you just let them be who they are and still love them for who they are.
and then let them be leeches, right?
Or whatever that is. You still love that there's leeches there because
I
they're
love leeches.
but
no, I don't.
I don't know
They're annoying.
how can you justify not killing someone if there are no aspects to love about them?
Well, okay, so I have a morality and an ethics that precludes me from murdering someone or causing harm to someone unnecessarily. So we need to come up with some creative solution, some societal
Well,
solution.
Michael, I think that's just a flawed thing. You're not making you're just not letting yourself make the leap. I mean, you're killing things sacrifice is a big part of just living and wanting things. You're just saying, I will not kill a person. That's just a
person.
leap.
Yeah, a person.
But if there was a person that really, I mean,
if there was a violent person towards me, I'd have to kill him.
Well, let's just say,
or a violent person that was.
What about
someone
Hitler?
else.
What he did nothing to you, but you know everything that he was. You went back. Would you kill Hitler?
Well, no, yeah,
You would kill Hitler.
probably, yeah,
Yeah.
because he's doing needless violence to people. So you have to end the source of the needless
And
violence.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying this homeless person's Hitler.
No,
but I'm saying like the same.
if he's a
Like there
bad
are
rat-
no redeemable qualities.
Oh, if this person has no redeemable qualities and he's violent, then he should be.
No, he's not violent.
No.
No.
The evil people, the bad rats, the people who maybe he's not violent, but he's mischievous in a way where he's deceptive.
Well, he's not
And-
causing good in the world.
And changes people's minds towards a banal nature. If he's doing if he's like
What? Like,
if he's the snake in the garden, then yeah, I'd say kill the snake in the garden.
okay, but let's just forget all that aside. What if he's just lazy? What if he's just shitting his pants on the street?
Okay, so a person who is ineffectual, upon their environment. They don't even affect their environment at all, except for leaving a mess, right? And they don't do anything all day. They don't communicate.
They're homeless.
They don't give anything.
They're just homeless.
They don't give anything
And
to
they're
anyone
able.
else. Are they doing anything good?
What can you do on the street? You tell me. I mean, what good can they do on the street?
Share drugs,
Is this
share food,
okay? So yeah, let's say they're doing
talk to each other, be there for someone. If they're like, okay, you could be like a community therapist and quote, not be doing anything except for just sitting there. You know, like if one could somehow become an icon of peace in their community, they wouldn't have to do anything. They could just sit there.
Well, this person that you're saying,
like a monk, you know,
this person we're talking about, that's what they would tell you.
You could be a monk in Skid Row. I'm sure there is probably a couple monks in Skid Row, you know, some like highly spiritual people.
But you don't mind.
You would never know that though. They're like gangster as fuck, you know, and they're living in the streets. Like you wouldn't know that they're like, you're like a monk, you know, you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
But like they're actually like super pure of heart, you know, like anyway. So with those people, like they're doing good, they're doing productive things because they're a part of the peace. So like if you're doing anything that like helps the war for love against fear, then yeah, that's very productive. Even if it's just.
So it's okay to be homeless as long as you're incrementally helping the love versus war fight.
Yeah. And you have to be aware of that. You have to be educated to know that like
but
every choice you make, it's either you're feeding into the fear in yourself and your environment or love in yourself and your environment. And if you're consciously going towards fear, then you're going to get punished by the world and eventually your environment will punish you. And we are your environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you decide to hurt another person, we will send police. We have community police that will enforce that, you know, make you do good or make you not do bad. So like, but I'm talking about the people who are ineffectual and don't want to work. Like, so like someone who like wants to be a community therapist or whatever, that's great. Like, okay, you're doing something.
This guy doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah, this guy he has no will to work.
What do we do with him?
To do anything. He
kill
says,
him?
fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I'm just going to sit here, make a mess, or keep, even if he kept his shit clean, it doesn't matter. He's just, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do drugs, trick out a girl or two. You know, I don't know. Like these, like things that aren't innately bad, like pimping and whoring is not like it's a job, you know? The only thing it just lends itself to bad nature.
Mm-hmm. A lot of us, yeah.
So like, what do you do with that person, that guy or that girl?
I would say, hey man, you just live your life, buddy. That's what I would say. I would say, hey, I'm here when you're ready.
But there's a bunch of them. That's the problem. It's like the whole United States ships their homeless here, and they bus them in.
Oh man!
And they're just dumped here. So what do you do when there's literally 60,000, 100,000 homeless people, as there are in LA?
Oh, dude, we're talking about two different things. Because the homeless situation is totally different. These are not lazy people.
No. Of those homeless people, how many of them do you drive by where they're just sitting in the, like, they aren't doing shit. They're there every day sitting in their tent.
What are you supposed to do, though?
Okay, yeah. Look, they aren't given opportunities. I get that.
Not only that, but dude, these are drug addicts. There's
a lot of things we can do within society.
Are probably drug addicts.
There's a lot of things we can do within society to reduce the homeless problem. It's not even a homeless problem. It's just a mental health drug problem. But of those people, say there's 1 or 2%, I don't know, I'm being generous, that are willfully like just gaming the system because it's free. They don't want to work. They don't want to do shit except for play in the drama of their life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. If someone is willfully not productive, but they just want to play constantly, I'd say I support that too, because play means you're learning a skill. You're getting good at ping pong or Call of Duty. I'm totally down with someone just doing that all day.
I think play tracks or it correlates directly to the personality trait openness.
So is there a person who's willfully not working, who's also unwilling to play? I say that person's mentally ill if he's not willing to play and or work or do anything. He's not motivated by anything.
Well, mentally ill is very broad. I mean,
and then if they're mentally ill, then they'd be thrown in a rehab, and a rehab could be a re-education center. So then you get into like the weird shit where the anarchist would be really pissed off at you for like forcing him to do anything. But it's like, you got to do something. I think the world.
We just came around to the contradiction of this man cannot exist because if he were to exist, he'd be mentally ill, and therefore he wouldn't just be normal. So therefore you'd have to change the way you're
the behavior
you're reacting. You have to treat it as a mental health issue or just a health issue instead of a motivation issue. That's
like thing. Humans, a healthy human being, what we consider a healthy human being, that is someone who does play games, who is naturally productive and takes care of their own environment, and which includes themselves. They have stable relationships. That's like the basis of a healthy human being. So
I would also say the marker of a healthy human being is the balance between living in a hierarchical system as well as only realizing you're exuding love through everything and being able to separate yourself from the hierarchies. Because within the given hierarchies, it's actually represented through a lot of dominance, a lot of spite. There's a lot of negative aspects, which aren't inherently bad, but if you get wrapped up in those games, they can certainly be negative things.
I think that can be distilled down to, if you just teach people that their choices matter and it's going in one of two directions, then that can bring the same awareness, right? Like, instead of knowing like this esoteric landscape, you can just tell them like, hey, your choices matter.
Well, the tricky thing about that is that's a big concept, because there's really, it comes down to two things, which is what this whole postmodernism bullshit's about, which is everything matters or nothing matters. Telling somebody that their choices matter isn't enough, because they could just say, well, no, it doesn't, because life is meaningless. And if they truly believe that, which, there's a good case to be made that life is meaningless. If you want to look at the world that way, you can do that.
So what do you do with the nihilists and the pessimists? Well, pessimist is something else, but what do you do with the nihilist materialist?
What I would do with him is I would say, okay, so you're there. There is nothing. Okay, now can we agree that we objectively see these hierarchies and we can acknowledge that these things are existing in the outside world? Yes. Okay. What is it that you want? And then you try and figure out what it is they actually want. Okay. So how can we work together in this hierarchical system to get you what you want? And then, a lot of actual psychopaths realize this and become, CEOs of companies. That's why they're really good at playing these hierarchy games. They're actually separating.
And there is such a thing as a functional psychopath or a functional sociopath.
Absolutely.
Like functional for society, I mean.
But typically what they want is they'll get by hurting other people, because other people's feelings don't matter to them. There's no connection. They don't empathize. And my view is the opposite. I am everyone. Everything that I see is a part of me. By me accepting and unconditionally loving myself is the same as accepting and unconditionally loving my father, my friends, any inanimate object as well, or anything that could exist.
So you're saying that The nihilist in this scenario, the nihilist is the biggest problem because they say, fuck you.
You got to keep your eye on them, because if their wants contradict human health, then you might have to kill that nihilist, because it's not good for people. And you know, like, you have to make sure you preserve things that are good.
Yeah. So is it ethical for society to kill off those things that are bad for society?
Sure. Love transcends ethics is what I'm saying. And so you can kill and you can still love. That's how I see this thing.
That's what it kind of came full circle, because you were like, before this started recording, you were saying that unconditional love, you were saying something about how you understand unconditional love now.
I finally realized.
Oh, so that's how all this started, really. It's kind of weird how all that started. So like you had this epiphany of unconditional love, and then that started like asking if one could love unconditionally. I wanted to define those words, and then it went into like what happens when someone is not acting the way you want them to act. And then it went into, okay, what does it mean for society when someone doesn't act how one should act, and one should act as a healthy human being? Yeah, interesting stuff, man.
Because here's what I mean by unconditional love. Here's what made me understand it is I understood loving good things, right? And the good times. But then I realized I realized what it meant to love the bad things. And that is what triggered my unconditional love, is recognizing the love in the bad aspects of people, of life. And once I love that, then I could unconditionally love everything. Yeah. I hope that resonates with somebody else too.
Kill the homeless nihilists.
A nihilist who just
who
doesn't agree with me and just killed somebody I love, and is about to kill someone else I love, I would have no problem killing that person.
Yeah. So, but like a nihilist who's also like super unagreeable or disagreeable, and is a hobo or whatever, not a hobo, but a bum, like someone who just doesn't want to contribute and says, fuck you. The only choice is to sit that person down in front of or bring like a therapist to them and have a conversation to change their mind.
Yeah.
That's the only, and maybe that takes every day for months, before this person changes their mind a little bit. Imagine that position, being that guy who's like society hires you to go to different people's places and to change their mind from nihilism to productive.
No one with any experience or
it's like
know-how would accept that.
It'd be like Jordan Peterson going to these different places. Like, you protect them, you have bodyguards and all that shit.
When it comes down to it, man, you can't, that's not something that you can help people, that you can change someone on, because that's your individual choice. You got to choose whether or not you want things to mean something.
Well, can you change the mind of a terrorist? Or can one change the mind of a terrorist? Is there anyone throughout history that can change the mind of a terrorist?
No, the only thing that can change the mind of a terrorist is the thing embodying the terrorist mind. You understand? The thing that's getting the mind's projecting on, that from the terrorist, we cannot from externally change that person. Only from within can that terrorist change. So that he needs to take from what's coming from the outside world. He needs to interpret that in a way where now he's changed his mind.
Imagine if we could convince like a terrorist cell, like bomb them with like some sleeping gas or some shit so they all pass out. And then they wake up in the same environment they passed out in, but it's actually just a replica.
I'm sorry, my phone's going off, man.
It's okay. But you put these terrorist cells in a replica that looks like what they're familiar with, and then you give them information that says that they already achieved their mission. Or like their enemy is dead.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do you think is going to happen?
Then would someone be able to come in and change their mind?
Probably for a little bit. Be
like, hey, dude, you won. We won. Like that shit. The fucking American president's dead. They already pardoned us. The next president pardoned us.
Things are good.
The military's like totally down with like funding us. Like we're totally badass. Great.
What's there to complain about?
Yeah. There's nothing to complain about.
We're good.
Now your family's still dead. You know, we can't change the past, but everything's good now.
Okay.
I think some of those guys would probably kill themselves. They would. And then the other ones that are fine with living with what they've done, they would have to be put into, after the mind changes, they would have to then be put into a new environment. So they're away from their old environment.
Wait. I don't understand. Like,
they have to feel like comfortable with their environment, that a stranger can come in and give them good news. And then after they receive the good news, then that stranger or a partner of that stranger would have to change their mind a little bit and convince them to go somewhere.
Okay.
That would be beneficial for them. Like, hey, we just got funded $10 billion. Let's go.
I'm sure they'd be eager to do that.
Let's go to this island. We'll party for a while.
Yeah.
And then you send them to the island.
Or just start a new family.
You send them to the island, and then you just keep them on an island and without any like technology, and you give them a whole society, but then you police them to make sure they're not evil, because as soon as they do something evil, they're fucking dead.
Yeah, but listen, man, you think that these things are isolated incidents. This is not isolated. No matter who you have, this shit's going to come back up.
Yeah, but okay, so like for instance, like all the terrorism that we've grown up with since, the 80s, there's been war, since we've been born. We've been in war forever.
Oh, yeah.
So
animals are at war. Everything's at war to eat.
But what I'm saying is that most of the bad people that we imagine that exist, that we would label as a terrorist, they were created. That's not like the natural state of a human. It's a
manifestation of, again, a larger God, right?
It's like, okay,
gods that have been in play. Then a larger thing, which is things that fight each other.
Mm-hmm. Or
that's just the manifestation of things that fight each other.
Yeah, conflict.
Which exists and will always exist.
Yeah, and I believe you should know your war strategy to avoid conflict as much as possible. But what I'm saying is, like, we created these terrorists, like the American CIA, government, NSA, whatever black, dark shit is in the United States government. Yeah. They created these terrorists. So,
well, I mean, I guess sort
of. They totally did.
Well,
they're bombed the hell out of them.
Let's just say they're one.
And then they funded them.
Let's just say they're one and the same. They're yin and yang. Can we? I would. I mean,
it's two different cultures.
But without us, they wouldn't exist. Without them, we wouldn't exist in this aspect of fighting each other. Like, we both kind of create and play off of each other.
Well, there's internal conflict as much as the external conflict. We don't need external conflict.
What do you mean?
Like, terrorists just don't exist, like, by themselves. Like, there are people who are assholes and that rise to power, and then they become like some sort of warlord.
Okay, so you mean, like, yeah, there are forces such as bombing someone's family that created the terrorist, mm-hmm. really. Like, they may have had a little anger and shit, but like, really, once you do that, then it's game on.
Yeah, basically. And then you fund them and give them weapons, and then you give them the ability to be a terror to their environment. That's only possible because Americans came in and did it.
Okay, so yeah, and let's just keep going through that, and it's like, okay, then it's the Americans,
Israeli, Russians,
right?
Like
but
Chinese.
Then deeper within the American or that thing is the mentality. The mentality is the part of the larger thing, mm-hmm. and then boom, it branches off into the terrorist, which is the child.
Yeah. So that's an arm of the deep state. Terrorism is an arm of the deep state, and the deep state is a bunch of evil people that are working together to control shit.
It's where we're at right now.
Yeah, so we're in it. Yeah. So my point is, I just want to say, like, that doesn't exist naturally, but it does exist naturally because power structures create it, right? Like, evil power structures create that shit. So what do you do about that?
Well,
So what I'm saying
evil
is,
and good.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in altruistic worlds, you don't have terrorism.
But
Because you have everyone that if you're trying to terrorize, then you're immediately dealt with in some way.
But and the thing is though is something different than the altruistic society, whether it's good or bad, could be labeled the terrorist, and now it's good versus bad. So
yeah, well, fear, like this person's an asshole and he's terrorizing. Like we need to stop that shit.
Yeah, just the little drop in the ink in the water or whatever.
And then we also have to have the reaction to that, because how do you rehab the people that are inflicting the punishment? How do you rehab the security guard who is becoming a tyrant in himself towards another person? And that's a whole nother thing.
This is really interesting because there's so much subjectivity to, it's all an eye and beholder on what's good and bad and what we should allow and what we shouldn't. But then what we're talking about are larger concepts that aren't subjective, these larger God concepts. And we're saying there are objectively good and bad things, and these things are playing and manifesting. We need to actually acknowledge how this good and bad things are manifesting and then go towards the good, support the good.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I said like when you said unconditional love, I believe in loving the things that are behaviorally good and then punishing the things that are bad. And that's even from a place of love, because I want you to be better. I want my world to be better. So the people in it, I'm going to punish accordingly if they do something wrong. Or I should say, I might not be the punisher. Someone else might be, but I'd say if you are punished, you should go through it completely, Like if you do, I don't believe people should get punished for parking in a wrong place. But if you get a parking ticket, you should go through the process of correcting it. I don't believe in parking tickets, but
it's an interesting.
What immediately came up.
There is the debate. What is the corrective punishment to correct the behavior? What's like the most appropriate punishment to correct the behavior? We could go on for that.
And subjectively, there are laws that are subjective, like morality and ethics. Those arise over however many years of history and philosophy and human society that has developed. We have this code of ethics and morality to follow. And that's all from subjective experience. It's not, you can't say like, don't kill someone is like an objective, like why? Why should
right. That should be universal, right?
Yeah. But that's created from a subjective experience, I think.
Exactly. Because if you're in war, that does not exist, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in battle, or even if you're just in a moment where you're in conflict, life and death with somebody.
So how do we, so there's terrorists in people, and sometimes that terrorist comes out in certain environment. If you're the executioner, you do have to exude violence. So
here's where it comes with my unconditional love, is because I see that in myself. I would be that if I was you. I must love you because I would have done the same fucking thing. I would hope someone, because here's the thing, it starts there. It starts with, if I can love your negative thing, the shame diminishes. Mm-hmm. And now you let the light in a little bit, because shame is the blocker of love.
Shame.
Isn't that a weight lifted if you know that someone loves you no matter what you do or could do? Isn't that like...
Yeah, that's what I want to do with like this person that doesn't want to do shit with their life. I'm like, look,
yeah.
You still have a place where a lot of good things can exist for you. Right now, your life is not as good as it could be.
And have the faith, once you open up like that he will make the change himself. You did your part.
But you also need to support, make the environment support
a
say,
good
decision.
I don't support you here. I can't be around you here, but I'm ready. When you're ready, I'm here.
So I guess you just build a door across the street from his tent.
Yes.
And then when he's ready to explore inside this door,
give him positive reinforcement.
Like, look, there's a lot of good shit over here. But if you walk through this door, there's conditions to be in this environment.
Yes. Yeah. You have to.
Could you draw the door outside of his tent? So like if you leave your little 4x4 space, there are laws you have to follow. You can't go kill someone,
Yeah.
You also have to be, if you leave this space, you have to be productive in this way or that way, or
because
communicate in this way.
I mean, ultimately, if you're not going to do the right things, you're going to die earlier than you want to die by me, because I don't mind killing you if you're really bad. I mean, people have to realize that some people don't want to make the hard decisions. Some people do.
Someone's like, man, I just want to kill.
Some people do want to kill, and it's very hard for them not to kill. And we have to love those people too.
By executing if they attempt to kill someone.
Yeah, but the proper things to put them in an environment where they can kill people.
Virtual reality for the psychopath.
Or war, yeah.
Or war, yeah. Conflict. Yeah, I guess the psychopath. But the thing is, like, do you believe in, like, war, laws of war? Like, you can't, for instance, torture someone. Like, you can't, like, flay people's skin, burn people alive needlessly. Like, outside of
the things that we do to other people,
outside of, like, extreme information gathering tactics.
What are we doing? I mean, what are we doing? I mean,
like
unthinkable. Like, we got nuclear weapons across the city, and we got this guy who knows where they are. So what are we liable to do with him and his family? I mean,
that's that scene. That's that scene you showed me with Samuel L. Jackson.
That's the movie. That's called? Unthinkable.
Unthinkable? Oh, man, dude.
So, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, listen, this is on us. This is where we're at. What do you expect us to do? What do you expect us to do? All right. That's all I'm saying is, like, I love Sam Jackson. I love the terrorist. And listen, guys, you guys got to figure this shit out. And if, listen, we're all going to just say goodbye, then goodbye. But listen, I'd rather choose rock and roll than nuclear fucking holocaust. Okay. That's just me. And I would hope other people feel the same. But, you know.
Rock and roll or nuclear holocaust?
I just watched this incredible David Chase movie, and that was the last line. You know, the two, can't remember exactly. It's like the two greatest inventions of modern day was the nuclear weapons and rock and roll, something like that. And really, at the end of the day, it's like the movie The Joker. You got to come down to it. I thought my life was a tragedy, found out it was a comedy. What are you going to do? Are you just you got to laugh at shit every now and then? I mean, yeah, things are horrible. You know, you grow up with a dysfunctional life, abuse, trauma, bad things happen, you know, malicious, like a malevolence fucking out of nowhere just hits you. You know what? Keep going. And guess what? It's life. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, just try and protect the good in this world. But I'll tell you what, resentment, fear, shame, anger, these things do not manifest the good. So let's just be aware of those markers and then handle them accordingly. If you need some help, ask your friends. And if you don't have good friends, then that's the first thing that you need to go on and do is find out how to make good friends. And if you need help with that, then just, you know, there are people here, professionals that can help you.
There are people with mental instabilities that still have good friends. They just treat each other badly.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother thing is like you create this. If people are social, then people divide themselves up naturally by their personality and their IQ and all that shit, you know. So you have like certain people that play cards or like go to the bar, and then you have other people who go to like fancy dinners or go to university, or so there also has to be a way for these people to, like, society has to work for every single layer.
What I'm saying here is that's where love comes in, because it transcends every hierarchy system, every group dynamic. And that's what I've been going into now, is like excited to see what happens when I express unconditional love to everybody that I meet.
Some people are going to be very uncomfortable with that.
But I've found so far that the most uncomfortability, yeah, there's comfortability, but the only time you get lashed out at is when you start playing the game, when you start playing the hierarchy game, or start like saying jokes or start doing this or that, then they'll come back at you. So you have to always make sure that you're only expressing love, not teasing, not one-upping, not bragging, not anything like that. It's only you are me, I am you, and I respect and I love every aspect of that.
You tease someone like, I unconditionally love you and you're incapable of that.
Well, like this, like there was this guy at the wedding that his name was Garrett, and I automatically, I'm like, okay, Garrett, I know Garrett, you're Garrett. I'm not going to forget that. And he's like, well, throughout the night, everyone's calling me Derek, Gary, Jerry, all sorts of shit. And like, it keeps happening. He's like, that's not my name. It's disrespectful. He has this giant smile. It's not my name. It's disrespectful, da, da, da. So I'm like, yeah, man, that's fucking crazy, da, da, da. And then there was one point where people are like, you're only 27? You look like you're in 30s or something. I'm like, yeah, man, you're like 57 or something. And then he's like, oh, yeah, whatever, asshole. And I'm like, okay. So the little jabs, boom, 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 those aren't loving jabs. Those are like little tiny, I got hurt. And like,
are they not loving?
I don't think they're loving. I think they're more like
you're saying humorous, being humorous, or trying to hurt that other person?
I think
like
it was an expression of hurt. It wasn't that intentionally I'm trying to hurt you, but there is a hurt bubble, and that hurt bubble's in the air, and like you can touch it and you can feel the hurt. You know what I mean? But it wasn't directed.
But you
anywhere.
aren't saying these things because it hurts them. You're saying it because it's funny.
Trying to, yeah. But
or
then,
make light.
But then the hurt bubble comes out a little bit. The pain bubble. And comedy is a way to ease the pain, honestly.
But that's not necessarily bad. Like there's a bunch of like dark comedy that only exists because the world is harsh.
Yeah, it's a painkiller. Comedy's a painkiller. You try and insert it into areas that are uncomfortable or where you're not feeling good. And you try to laugh. What a bummer. Just kidding. I gotta get going though, man, because like I gotta go barbecue at my brother's place.
That's nice.
Yeah, I guess he said he quit his job. I was like, what's going on? You know? So
he's like a 2-year-old now or 1-year-old?
He has a 1-year-old. Maya. She's little baby. It's great. You know, I have high hopes. I actually don't see any trauma in this one's life. You know, as far as childhood trauma, I don't see it happening, which is nice.
Just wait.
I mean, you know, you got to keep an eye on shit. But, I mean, my brother.
As long as she has a gun as fast as she can hold a gun. Like,
well, she's going to, I mean, I'm going to be John Travolta in Face Off. I'm going to give her one of those switchblade. I'm not going to fucking hit on her or anything, but I'm going to give her one of those switchblade knives, butterfly knives. Be like, yo, play with this. Get your arm cut up a little bit, but make sure you know how to use it. And then when you drill it into their thigh, just turn it like this, and it'll keep their fucking hands off you. I'm gonna give it to her like 6. See what she does. She has knives everywhere. She has like 3 older brothers. She's gonna be absolutely fine. You know. Still though,
some jiu-jitsu.
And jiu-jitsu.
Dude, I had a conversation with my dad. I was like, we were talking about how voting's important, and then like. He was like, and then these white people, these white supremacist types, they're going around and they're intimidating black voters by having open carry and going into a voter registration or a voter booth. I'm like, don't you have to be like 100 feet away or some shit? He's like, yeah, you have to be. You can't intimidate 100 feet. I'm like, all right, well, that's taken care of. I'm like, go protest. I was like, is there a counter protest? He's like, no, there's no counter protest because they didn't know. I'm like, all right, well, counter protest. If you don't like it. But anyway, I was arguing with him because I was like, I believe that open carry is great. I think a well-armed society is a polite society. I think that's actually a true statement. And he was like, oh, you think people, like he throws out all the traditional anti-2A arguments, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he was talking about how I can't even restate his argument, but it was essentially you think that his argument was, oh, if someone has a gun, then they're likely to use it, like and then start killing people. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you that people are less likely to get violent if everyone has a weapon.
Yeah.
And I was like, look. And I guess he didn't believe me. I was like, look, you don't have to trust me on this, but I have the data. I've lived this. I know what I'm talking about. When people have a means to defend themselves, they are way less likely to jump to violence. If people are less, they can't defend themselves as well, they're way more likely to jump to violence to end it. But if you know how to defend yourself, you're more likely to de-escalate and talk things down. And he just doesn't get that. Like, I think a lot of people don't get that.
Well, I think even a more understandable concept you can see with your own two eyes is that people will less likely prey on you if you're armed. They will more likely prey on people that are weaker, that they don't have to work so hard to get the shit that they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's just more logical. I think people should understand that.
Low-hanging fruit.
But if you don't know Granny's packing, she may or she may not, or you see a strap on her, are you really going to try and take her purse? I mean, fuck out of here. I mean, if you think the chances of someone stealing from someone armed is the same as if they weren't, then I guess we can't even talk anymore because you're just fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't live in the same reality as I do, you fucking moron.
But yeah, so that's, I think people who are against Second Amendment or want to reduce, this came up because Texas is allowing like machine guns and shit.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's pretty extreme. I think the pendulum is going too far. You know, you shouldn't have to have, like, we shouldn't have everyone have a cannon. Like, that's too much, you know? Come on.
I mean,
have a special license for it, I guess.
Just the idea.
Okay. So yeah, you can have a machine gun, and apparently you don't even have to have a license to open carry now. You can just go get it.
Let's just preserve the idea of what a just society should be. You can have guns. Yes, they shouldn't be fully automatic, but you can take the fuck with the firing pin and make it fully automatic very easily. We all know that. No one says it. Why do you have to say that fucking like automatic weapons are now legal? Like, listen, you don't have to say it. Just say fucking right to bear arms, okay? And if you want regulation, have regulation. Now, I'm not saying take away assault rifles. Listen, fine. Assault, whatever kind of weapons, fine. Do you need it automatic? No. These are automatic weapons. If you have it, if you really want to, you could do it. You don't have to fucking put in law that says we should have automatic weapons. No, you shouldn't. We shouldn't have to have any weapons. But we should be able to.
Yeah. You should be able to defend yourself if you can't otherwise. Yeah. And a lot of people think like guns are intimidating because you're going to get a AK or whatever, an AR, you're going to go into public and brandish the weapon. And that's like, I'm like, okay, well, first of all, people who are skilled at having guns, like at using guns and handling them, they don't want you to know they have a gun. They will hide the gun. You know, they don't like the brandishing a gun to intimidate is like low level shit, you know? It's like,
it comes down to like good and bad, and how do you make a society to have more good people and not bad? That's it. You know, fucking guns are just bullshit, dude.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. We need.
It's all fucking bullshit. This
Cops got guns, criminals got guns, so regular people should have guns.
Why can't we just go back to the way things were? Like Gary Cooper, the strong silent type. Whatever happened to that?
Speak softly, carry a big stick.
All right, I gotta go, man. Peace, it's been wonderful.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Be well.
That was fun, buddy.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, we should do it again. I don't know. Those some deep concepts. What do you think?
We went an hour 15.
That's pretty good, dude. Can you send it to me? I'll put it on my YouTube channel.
Okay, with the video in that.
Would you
can you sync the two?
Yeah.
Would you send it to me? Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the coffee too.
That was a good conversation.